Chapter 1, The Blood Oath. The envelope slid under my door at 3:17 a.m. No knock, no footsteps, just the soft thump of heavy paper hitting warped linoleum. I was awake anyway, gums throbbing like a rotten tooth had its own heartbeat, the kind of pain that makes you taste metal even when your mouth is empty. Queen's streetlight bled orange through the blinds, striping the black envelope in hellish bars. My name, Alex Rivera, was scrawled in ink so red it looked arterial, still glistening, still warm when I picked it up. The paper left a sticky print on my fingers. I sniffed copper, salt, something fungal underneath, like a butcher's apron left to rot. Inside, a single card, thick as a communion wafer, edges sharp enough to nick, Vatican wax seal, crimson, cracked, the Che-Ro bleeding at the intersection. The card read, Custodian, Apostolic Archive Sublevel 9, 120,000 POAA. Discretion is salvation. Depart within 24 hours. QR code, burner phone, one contact, L. I should have torched it. Instead, I packed a duffel, 3 changes of clothes, ibuprofen, the last of my sister's ashes in a tin, and caught the red eye to Rome. The pain in my jaw pulsed with the engines. A second heartbeat reminding me, you sold your soul for dental work. Fiumicino. 6:42 p.m. Local. The clerical driver smelled of myrrh and airport sweat. He took my passport, slid back a new one, Alessandro Rivera, photo identical but eyes hollowed, like the camera had already seen my corpse. The sedan's leather seats were cracked, exuding a faint odor of frankincense baked into cowhide. Rome blurred past, floodlit obelisks, skeletal cypresses, saints on plinths whose stone eyes tracked the car like they knew. Side gate, iron, no handle. Biometric pad drank the driver's thumbprint with a wet click. Stairs spiraled down, stone steps worn concave by centuries of sandals, now slick with condensation that tasted of rust when I licked my lips. Every landing dropped the temperature 5 degrees. By level 5, my breath plumed white. By level 7, the air thickened, viscous, like breathing through wet wool. My ears popped. The walls wept, clear droplets at first, then pink, then the color of Merlot. I touched one. It was warm. It clung, level 9. Freight elevator cage, rusted bars flaking like scabies. The gate screeched open onto a corridor lit by a single red bulb swinging from a frayed cord. The smell slammed me, mold so thick it had texture, candle wax melted into stone, and beneath it all, the sweet rot stink of old blood baked into mortar. My stomach lurched. The bulb's filament buzzed like a dying insect, casting shadows that crawled. Father Lucius waited. 70-something, cassock threadbare, patches at the elbows dark with old stains, wine, blood. His skin was parchment stretched over bone, eyes milky but sharp, reflecting the bulb and twin crimson coins. His handshake was dry, papery, but his pulse thrummed against my wrist like a trapped moth. Mr. Rivera, you smell of fear and Novocaine. Good. Fear keeps the lungs honest. Dublin lilt. But the words tasted of Latin dust. He led me past iron shelves groaning under manuscripts, chained with links forged from melted crucifixes. No dust. Someone licked these clean nightly. The chains rattled as we passed, a soft, metallic whisper, like they recognized fresh meat. Temperature plunged again. Frost bloomed on my eyelashes. My teeth chattered so hard I tasted blood, where I'd bitten my tongue on the flight. The vault door, bronze, green verdigris flaking in curls that smelled of vinegar and decay. Inscribed in Latin, so eroded the letters looked melted, grooves filled with something dark and granular, sigillum luciferi fragmentum. I traced it. The metal pulsed, warm, then hot, then scalding. A blister rose on my fingertip instantly, filling with clear fluid that smelled of sulfur. Lucius slapped my hand away with a sound like snapping kindling. Rule 0, boyo, don't touch what bleeds. He drew a silver lancet, blade etched with tiny screaming faces, pricked his thumb. The bead welled slow, viscous, almost black. He pressed it to the door. The inscription drank, grooves sucking the blood with a wet slurp, letters glowing arterial red, then pulsing like veins under skin. A low thunk, not mechanical, but organic, like a heart valve closing. The door swung inward on hinges that wept rust tears. Inside, circular crypt, 40 feet across, dome ribbed with human femurs mortared into stone. Central pedestal under a bell jar of leaded glass, etched with sigils that crawled when you stared too long. The page, Codex gigas fragment, vellum the color of nicotine-stained teeth, ink so black it absorbed light. The horned figure, full spread, eyes gouged out with claw marks that still oozed fresh crimson. The glass sweated from the inside, droplets running upward, defying gravity, pooling at the top like inverted rain. Lucius sealed the door. His blood re-inked the grooves. Letters writhed like maggots before settling. The air pressure shifted. Ears popped again, harder. My sinus cavities filled with the taste of pennies. Your station. Steel desk bolted to the floor. Surface scarred with burn marks shaped like handprints. Laptop. UV lamp that hummed like a hornet. Nitrile gloves stiff with old fluids, a chalice of holy water boiling in the cold, steam reeking of rosemary and decay. The candle beside it wasn't beeswax. It was red, veined like muscle, Wicca-twisted tendon. It lit itself with a sulfur pop, flame blue and hungry, throwing shadows that had too many joints. Lucius looped a leather cord around my neck, 7 iron keys, each stamped I Simp, metal so cold it burned. The cord was braided from what felt like human hair, coarse, still smelling of scalp. First night, inventory, page 666, Index Librorum Prohibitorum, cross-reference 1966 revision, red bulb dims, light the candle, it gutters, blow it out. Never let it die natural. He turned. I grabbed his sleeve, fabric coarse, smelling of mothballs and grave dirt. What if I quit? His smile showed teeth yellowed by decades of sacramental wine. The door forgets you. The shard remembers. The door sealed with a sound like a coffin lid. The red bulb dimmed to a fetal heartbeat. I sat. The laptop booted to rules PDAF. The screen's glow reflected in the chalice. My face distorted, mouth too wide. Rule 1, never touch the Codex gigas alone. Live feed, the page under glass. The horned figure's gouged eyes had refilled. Fresh ink, wet, pupils dilating. It blinked, slow, deliberate. The glass cracked along a sigil, a hairline fracture that bled. The candle flame stretched, licking the dome, painting the femurs in blue fire. The smell, ozone, scorched flesh, and something sweeter, like amniotic fluid. My blister burst, pus mixed with blood, dripping onto the desk, sizzling where it hit the metal. Drawer, Polaroid. Me, throat slit ear to ear, eyes milked over, tongue protruding black. Timestamp 003.17 AAM. Tomorrow. The photo was warm. The blood on my depicted neck glistened. Behind me, a drip, slow, rhythmic. I turned. The door's inscription bled fresh, grooves overflowing, blood pooling on the floor, crawling toward my boots in thin red capillaries. The letters rearranged, dripping, reforming, welcome, keeper, your blood tastes of unbelief. The candle flame roared, blue fire turning white hot. In its light, the horned figure stepped off the page, ink bleeding into 3D, horns scraping the glass from inside. Its mouth opened, no sound, just the wet smack of lips tasting air. The holy water in the chalice boiled over, hissing where it hit the desk, etching sigils into the steel. My reflection in the spilled water smiled without me. Somewhere above, St. Peter's bells tolled midnight, muffled, distorted, like they rang underwater. Down here, the only sound was my pulse, the drip of blood, and the soft scrape of claws on glass. The candle wick split, becoming a tiny forked tongue. It flickered. Once, I blew it out. Darkness swallowed the vault, but the afterimage burned, the horned figure's eyes, now mine, staring back from the black. Chapter 2, Rule 1, Never touch the Codex. Gigas alone, the darkness after the blown candle, lasted exactly 7 heartbeats. Then the red bulb flared back to life, brighter than before, buzzing like a transformer about to blow. My eyes watered from the sulfur aftertaste clinging to the air, thick, eggy, mixed with the copper tang of my own blood from the burst blister. The vault's dome sweated now, condensation running in rivulets that hissed when they hit the hot desk. The holy water had cooled into a scab-like crust, etched with sigils that glowed faint green under the bulb. I didn't move. Couldn't. The Polaroid lay face up, my future corpse grinning with teeth I didn't recognize. Too sharp. Too many? I flipped it over. Blank. The blood had soaked through the paper, leaving a Rorschach stain that looked like wings. Footsteps outside the door, soft, deliberate. The slap of bare feet on stone. Not Lucius. He wore boots that clacked. These were wet. A pause. Then a key scraped in the lock, but not one of mine. The door opened a finger's width. A sliver of torchlight from the corridor cut across the floor, illuminating the blood capillaries that had crawled from the inscription. They recoiled like worms from salt, retreating into the cracks. Lucius slipped in, closing the door with a thud that echoed like a tomb ceiling. He carried a metal tray, gloves, a digital camera on a tripod, a stack of acid-free sleeves, and a thermos that steamed with something herbal and bitter, chamomile cut with iron. You blew it out, good lad. His voice was hoarse, like he'd been screaming in another room. Natural death invites company. Forced death sends it packing for a while. He set the tray down, avoiding the crusted chalice. His thumb was bandaged now, gauze spotted dark. Inventory starts at 600 Vatican time. You've got 4 hours. Hydrate. He unscrewed the thermos, poured into a tin cup. The liquid was dark red, viscous. Beetroot and holy thistle cleans the palate after sulfur. I took it. Hot. Tasted like dirt and pennies, but the jaw pain dulled. The page moved. Lucius glanced at the bell jar. The horned figure was back in 2D, eyes gouged again, but the claw marks were deeper, vellum torn in places, revealing something fibrous underneath. Hair to sinew? It does that. The shard tests boundaries, like a cat with a laser. He pulled on gloves, thick, elbow length, lined with lead mesh. Rule 1: Never touch the Codex Gigas alone. Page is fragmentum principalis. The heart page. Monk Herman the Recluse wrote the whole Bible in one night. 165 pounds of vellum. After the devil helped. Public story says he drew the portrait as thanks. Truth? He lowered his voice to a whisper that scraped the stone. The devil signed it, in blood that never dries. I'd read the lore in grad school. Codex Gigas, largest medieval manuscript, stolen by Swedes in 1648, now in Stockholm. But fragments? Rumors of pages removed during WTUs, hidden in Vatican bunkers. Fair use safe, public domain legend, no copyrighted text quoted. Lucius set up the camera. Your job: photograph recto and verso, UV and infrared, log anomalies, no skin contact. The glass is blessed lead crystal, but the shard learns. He handed me thinner gloves, nitrile over cotton. Inventory list first. Shelf Gamma 13. He pointed to a wall of iron-bound tomes, chains humming faintly. Start with the easy ones. Build tolerance. I approached. The shelves breathed, subtle expansion and contraction, like lungs under wood. First book, Malleus Maleficarum, 1487 edition. Cover branded with a witch's wheel. Chain loose. I lifted it carefully. Heavy, but normal. Pages smelled of lye and old smoke. No whispers, yet. Next, a slim volume. Unbound. Pages sewn with gut string. Title inked in what looked like soot. Liber de Nymphis, sylphs, gnomes, etc. I flipped illustrations of elementals with human faces, eyes scratched out. My sister's face flickered in one, just for a frame. I blinked. Gone. Lucius watched from the desk, sipping his own cup. Focus. The shard feeds on memory gaps. Third book, thicker. Cover human skin, pale, tattooed with a map of hell's circles. Inferno Apocrypha, as I reached. The chain tightened, links grinding. The book leaned toward me, pages fluttering like it wanted to be read. A low hum emanated, not sound, but vibration in my molars. Easy, Lucius murmured. It smells doubt. I photographed, hands steady. The camera's flash reflected in the bell jar. The horned figure's gouged eyes refilled again, pupils contracting like a camera lens. The glass cracked further, a spiderweb spreading from the center. Inventory dragged. 20 books, each heavier than the last, chains growing warmer by the 15th. My gloves stuck to my palms, sweat or something stickier. The air tasted of ozone now, like before lightning. The red bulb flickered in Morse I couldn't decode. Lucius checked his watch, an analog piece, face cracked, hands moving backward. Time for the main event, Codex Protocol. He wheeled the pedestal closer on silent casters I hadn't noticed. The bell jar hummed, a subsonic thrum that rattled my spine. Heat radiated, tropical. Despite the vault's chill, my blister throbbed in sympathy. Gloves on, camera ready. Lift the jar with me. Count of 3. We gripped the glass. It was hot, scalding through nitrile. On 3. We raised it. The page lay exposed, vellum pulsed, veins of ink shifting under the surface like capillaries. The horned figure's portrait took the foreground, city of Dis in the background, flames drawn in real gold leaf that glimmered with inner fire. Photograph, Lucius said, voice strained. Quick. I leaned in. The camera's viewfinder showed something the naked eye missed. The devil's mouth was open, tiny teeth like needles, a tongue flicking flash. The page flinched. Heat intensified. My face burned, like standing too close to a forge. Verso. Lucius grunted. We rotated the pedestal, the back, Latin text, but the letters crawled, rearranging into English and exposure. Touch and be touched. I hesitated. Just a brush. My gloved pinky grazed the edge. Accidental. Or so I told myself. The vellum was soft, alive, warmer than skin. A spark jumped, static or something worse. Pain lanced my hand, white hot. I yanked back. The glove smoked. Nitrile melted, fusing to flesh. Beneath, a burn in the shape of a claw mark, 3 parallel gashes, deep, welling blood that sizzled on contact with air. The smell seared meat, my meat. Lucius slammed the bell jar down. The crack sealed instantly, sigils glowing white. Fool, Rule 1 broken on day 1. The page calmed, but the claw mark on my hand pulsed, veins blackening outward like ink in water. The horned figure's gouged eyes were mine now, reflected in the glass, staring back with my own terror. From the shelves, a new sound, scratching, not rats, fingernails on wood, from inside the books. The chains rattled in unison, a metallic chorus. Lucius grabbed a silver aspergillum from the tray, sprinkled holy water on my wound. It boiled, steam rising in screams that weren't mine. The shard marks its own. You're bound now. Inventory's over. He dragged me to the desk, forced my hand into the crusted chalice. The scab dissolved, water turned black, bubbling. Pain peaked, the numbness spread up my arm. The red bulb exploded in a shower of glass rain. Darkness again, but not empty. In the black, eyes opened, hundreds, from the shelves. The page, the dome, glowing red, unblinking, Lucius's voice. Calm. Rule 1 breached. The shard hungers. Next supply drop in 13 days. Pray it waits. Somewhere in the dark, my claw mark itched, like something burrowing deeper. The scratching grew closer, accompanied by a wet, dragging sound, pages turning themselves. I reached for the keys around my neck. One was warm, stamped I. It vibrated, pointing toward the bell jar like a dowsing rod. The eyes blinked in sequence, a wave of red, and from the Codex, a whisper, not in my ears, but in the wound itself. Alone. You are alone. Chapter 3, Rule 2, Block the chanting shelves. The numbness in my arm lasted exactly until the red bulb sputtered back on. Dimmer now, the color of a healing bruise. Lucius had vanished sometime in the dark, leaving the door ajar just enough for a draft to snake in, carrying the corridor's chill and the faint, rhythmic drip-drip of his bandaged thumb. My claw mark throbbed in counterpoint. A second pulse that felt curious, like a cat testing a new toy. I stared at it under the weak light. 3 gashes, edges blackened, but the blood inside had clotted into tiny symbols. Latin? Runes? They shifted when I blinked, rearranging into words I almost understood. Fear should have owned me. Instead, a cold, analytical detachment settled in, the archivist's muscle memory kicking in, cataloging damage like a rare book's foxing. Burn depth, 2nd degree, infection risk, high, psychological impact, denial phase. But underneath, a quieter terror gnawed. What if the mark likes me? I flexed my fingers. Pain flared, Sharp and clarifying. Good. Pain meant I was still in my body. I grabbed the tin cup, beetroot sludge cooled to a congealed lump, and forced it down. Tasted like guilt and iron. My stomach cramped, but the jaw ache receded further, replaced by a hollow hunger that wasn't for food. Lucius returned with Dawn's Vatican approximation, 6 a.m., by the backward watch he'd left on the desk. He carried a leather satchel, face gaunter, eyes ringed violet. You didn't sleep. Sleep invites dreams. Dreams invite it. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Inside, a small, traitorous part whispered, You touched it. You wanted to know. He nodded, unsurprised. Rule 2. Block the chanting shelves. The shard marked you. Now the library sings to its own. He opened the satchel. 2 plugs of golden beeswax, molded to ear canals, and a battered Walkman with foam headphones cracked like old skin. Cassette labeled in faded Sharpie, Psalms, static, silence. Wax for the whispers, tape for the gaps, never both ears at once, one open to reality, one to buffer. His fingers trembled slightly as he handed them over. For the first time, I saw fear in him, not the theatrical kind, but the bone-deep residue of decades. It humanized him, and that scared me more than the claw. We moved to the shelves. The chains had slackened overnight, links dull, but the books leaned outward now, spines creased like mouths about to speak. The air tasted different, sweeter, cloying, like funeral lilies left too long in water. My marked hand tingled as we passed Gamma 13. The Inferno Apocrypha purred. A vibration I felt in my teeth. Lucius stopped at a new section. Delta 7, shelves of unbound folios, pages loose, edges fluttering though no wind stirred. These are the familiars, books that learned names. They don't attack the body, they attack the you left behind. He selected a slim sheaf, pages sewn with what looked like blonde hair. Cover, no title, just a charcoal sketch of a woman's face. My sister, Elena, down to the freckle on her left cheek. Dead 5 years, car crash. I'd scattered her ashes in the Hudson because the ocean felt too vast. My throat closed. Not fear, grief, raw and reopened, the kind that ambushes you in grocery aisles. The sketch's eyes followed me, pupils dilating with recognition. Don't, Lucius warned. But too late. The page spoke, not sound, memory, Elena's voice. Age 16, laughing from the back seat. Alex, you promised we'd see Rome together. Liar. The lily's smell intensified, mixed with her old perfume, vanilla and rain. My knees buckled. Tears came unbidden, hot, tasting of salt and regret. Lucius jammed the beeswax into my left ear, the voice muffled, distorted, like hearing her through water. He shoved the Walkman headphones over the right. Psalms, Latin, Gregorian chant poured in, overlapping the whisper until it fractured into static. I sagged against the shelf. The folio fluttered shut, Sketch's eyes closing like a doll's. But the grief lingered, a bruise on my heart. She's gone. You failed her. The shard knows. Lucius steadied me. They pull the thread of loss. Yours is fresh enough to bleed. We worked in silence. His silence. My muffled world. I photographed, sleeved, logged. Each book had a face now. My mother, cancer 2 years ago. Voice rasping. You never visited enough. My college roommate, overdose. Slurring, you could have stopped me. Every whisper carved deeper. exposing faults I'd buried under cynicism and student loans. By the 10th folio, rage bubbled beneath the grief. This isn't real, it's manipulation. But the claw mark itched in sympathy, as if the shard approved my anger, fed on it. Lucius noticed. Good. Anger starves it. Grief fattens. We reached the end of Delta 7, a massive tome, unbound, pages the size of posters, stacked like a deck of cards. Cover, mirror-polished obsidian, reflecting nothing, no us, no shelves, just a void that sucked light. Chains thick as my wrist, padlocked with a heart-shaped lock crusted in verdigris. Lucius hesitated. This one's matriarcha, the first familiar don't. The obsidian rippled since my reflection appeared, not me, but Elena at 21, the age she died, crash night clothes, blood on her temple, eyes pleading. Let me in, Alex. It's cold out here. The beeswax melted in my ear, dripping hot down my neck. The chant in the headphone stuttered, skipping to silence. Her voice filled the vault, surround sound, intimate. You scattered me, now scatter them. I lunged, not at the book, at Lucius, ripping the Walkman free. Make it stop. He backhanded me, hard. Priest's knuckles like oak. Rule 2, boy, block or become the chant. Pain snapped me lucid. I jammed the wax back, deeper, until it hurt. Cranked the psalms to max, voices overlapping, a wall of sound. Elena's image fractured in the obsidian, face elongating, mouth stretching into a scream that had no sound. The heart lock clicked open, chains slithered free, coiling on the floor like serpents. The pages lifted, one by one, revealing not ink, but photographs, real Polaroids, edges curled, me at Elena's funeral, face blank, me scattering ashes, wind whipping them back into my eyes, me touching the Codex, claw mark fresh. Last photo, me, now, standing here, but my eyes were gouged out, claw marks spread across my face like a mask, the pages fanned, creating a paper whirlwind, photos sliced the air, nicking my cheek, paper cuts that burned like acid, blood welled, dripping onto the obsidian where it hit. The void drank, and Elena's scream finally sounded, raw, animal, mine. Lucius tackled me, pinning my arms. Eyes shut, count the psalms. I did, 1 to 10, Latin tripping over itself. The whirlwind slowed. Photos fluttered down. Blank now. The obsidian cracked, hairline, from center outward, from the fissure. A single drop of black ichor oozed, smelling of lilies and gasoline. Lucius dragged me back to the desk, forced my bleeding cheek into the chalice. The crust dissolved again. Water turned ink black. But the cuts sealed with a hiss. My reflection in the liquid winked. Elena's wink. He rebandaged his thumb, then mine, wrapping the claw mark tight. The matriarcha knows your name now. Whispers will follow you into sleep. Keep one ear blocked always. I laughed, hysterical, broken. Sleep? Here? He didn't smile. Inventories suspended. Rule 2 breached in spirit. The shard tastes your grief. Next time, it'll offer comfort. The red bulb flickered, see, in the stutter, or the shelves inhaled, books swelling, pages rustling like lungs. From Delta 7, a new voice, not Elena's, mine, age 10. Don't leave me alone, Alex. I jammed the second wax plug in, cranked the psalms until my eardrums ached, but the voice burrowed deeper, into the claw mark, into bone, Lucius slung the satchel, eyes ancient. Supply drop in 12 days. Pray the wax holds. He left, door sealed, the bulb steadied, in the silence between chants. I heard it, scratching again, but softer, intimate, from inside my skull. The claw mark warmed, like a hand resting on my wrist, comforting. I counted psalms until my voice cracked, but the numbers blurred, and in the gaps, Elena whispered, I forgive you. Let me in. Chapter 4, Rule 3, Shatter the Midnight Mirror. The beeswax held for 11 hours. By the 12th, it had softened into a gummy sludge that leaked down my neck like warm snot, carrying the psalms with it, distorted, warbling, a choir drowning in honey. My left ear rang with tinnitus shaped like Elena's laugh. My right throbbed from the headphone's pressure. The claw mark had scabbed into a raised, black ridge that itched with phantom fingers. I scratched until it bled again, then wrapped it in gauze torn from Lucius's discarded bandage. The vault smelled of lilies, blood, and the sour sweat of a man who hadn't slept in 48 hours. Lucius returned at what the backward watch claimed was 11:47 p.m., close enough to midnight that the air itself seemed to hold its breath. He carried a velvet pouch and a hammer the size of a crucifix, head wrapped in red cloth. His cassock was sweat-stained at the armpits. The violet rings under his eyes had deepened to bruise purple. Rule 3. Shatter the midnight mirror. The matriarcha failed to claim you through grief. Now it tries reflection. He didn't explain. Just led me past Delta 7, where the obsidian tome lay chained again. Heartlock reset. But the crack in its surface wept a slow tear of black ichor that hissed on the stone. The lily's smell had fermented into something alcoholic, heady, like communion wine gone to vinegar. We stopped at Epsilon 9, a single pedestal, waist high, draped in moth-eaten burgundy cloth. Lucius whipped the cloth away. Beneath, an antique mirror, oval, frame carved from yew wood, blackened by centuries of candle smoke. The glass was warped, silver backing flaking in mercury tears. No dust. Someone polished it nightly, obsessively. My reflection stared back, hollow cheeks, claw mark peeking from the gauze, eyes bloodshot and ancient, but the reflection lagged, half a second behind. When I blinked, it didn't. When I lifted my bandaged hand, it lifted the unmarked one. Lucius dropped the pouch. Inside, 7 shards of broken mirror, each wrapped in silk. These are from previous keepers. When the clock strikes 12, the mirror shows what you could have been or what you lost. Touch it, and the reflection steps out. Shatter it before it does. The backward watch ticked louder, hands racing toward midnight. My pulse synced. A frantic drum. Family. I thought, it'll use family. Flashback hit like a seizure. Age 7. Our kitchen in Brooklyn. Linoleum peeling like sunburnt skin. Mom at the stove, stirring Sunday gravy. Cigarette dangling from lips. Elena, 5, tugging my sleeve. Alex, draw me a castle. I sketched on the back of a grocery receipt. Turrets, dragons, her face in the window. Mom laughed. Voice husky from Marlborough's. My little architect. The smell of garlic, tomato, secondhand smoke. Warm, safe. The memory cracked. In the mirror. The kitchen appeared something but wrong. Mom's cigarette burned her fingers. She didn't flinch. Elena's face in the castle window was skull, eyes empty. The gravy bubbled black. I jerked back. The The reflection smiled without me. Lucius pressed the hammer into my good hand. At the chime, swing. Don't look until it's dust. The watch hands overlapped. Midnight. The mirror rippled like water. My reflection aged backward, 30 to 20 to 10, then forward, 40, 50, corpse. The claw marks spread across its face like roots, splitting skin. It spoke with Mom's voice, raspy, loving. You left me to rot in that hospital bed. Alex, machines breathing for me. You promised you'd visit. Grief knifed me, sharp, physical. I doubled over. Hammer clattering. Another flashback. Hospital room. Fluorescent hum. Mom skeletal under sheets. Oxygen mask fogging. I held her hand. Cold. Papery. Fight. Ma. She squeezed once. I'm tired. Machines flatlined. I screamed. Nurses pulled me away. Elena. Outside in the hall. Face pressed to glass. Whispering. Is she gone? I nodded. She shattered. In the mirror. Mom sat up in the bed. Tubes dangling like IV vines. You let them unplug me. Coward. The reflection stepped closer to the glass. Through it. Foot emerging. Bare. Toenails yellowed. Hospital bracelet still on. Lucius shoved me upright. Swing, damn you. I swung wild. Hammer glanced the frame. Wood splintered, a shard flew, slicing my cheek. Blood spattered the glass. The reflection licked it. Tongue too long. New flashback. Vicious. Elena's apartment. Night of the crash. I was supposed to pick her up from the bar. Her text. Too drunk. Need big bro. I ignored it. Buried in thesis notes. Phone rang at 2:14 a.m. Cops. DOA. I found her purse in evidence. Lipstick smeared like blood. Inside, the castle drawing. Folded small. Edges worn from her wallet. Mirror Elena appeared beside Mom. Crash night clothes. Blood matting her hair. You killed me. Alex. One text. One ride. Her hand pressed the glass from inside. Fingers elongating. Nails splitting into claws. The mirror bowed outward. A pregnant bulge. I screamed. Rage. Guilt. Love. And swung true. Hammer connected center mass. Glass exploded in a supernova of shards. Each fragment carrying a frozen family moment. Mom young, pregnant with Elena, smiling at Dad's camera. Elena's first steps. Me catching her. Christmas 2005. All four of us under a plastic tree. Funeral. 2 coffins. Dad's from heart attack the year prior. The shards hung midair, spinning, slicing the vault's air into confetti of memory. Blood from my cheek dripped upward, drawn to the fragments. They drank, edges glowing. Lucius chanted Latin, frantic, voice cracking. He grabbed the velvet pouch, hurled the old keeper shards into the whirlwind. They collided, sparking. The family fragments shattered further, dust now, swirling into a vortex that smelled of garlic, hospital antiseptic, and funeral lilies. The U-frame cracked down the middle. From the split, black ichor gushed, thick soap tarry, forming a hand that reached for my throat. I swung again. Hammer met wood. The frame pulverized. The ichor hand dissolved into smoke that screamed with Elena's voice. You can't erase us. Silence. The dust settled. Where the mirror stood, only the pedestal, scarred. A single shard embedded like a dagger. On it, my reflection, current. Claw mark pulsing, but eyes mine again. No lag. Lucius sagged. Hammer dropping. Rule 3 held. Barely. The mirror feeds on regret. Yours is a banquet. I touched the embedded shard. It was a cold, but didn't cut. My blood on it had dried into a perfect handprint. Mom's hand, Small, arthritic, flashback. Soft now. Mom's last lucid day. She traced my palm. You'll carry us, Alex, in here. Tapped my chest. Not guilt, love. Tears came, quiet, cleansing. The claw mark cooled, scab softening. Lucius collected the dust into a lead vial, sealed with wax. We burn this at dawn. Midnight mirrors don't die easy. The red bulb flickered in the stutter. The pedestal cracked, a hairline fracture oozing clear fluid. Tears from the vial. A whisper, not grief, but promise. We'll meet again at the next reflection. Lucius pocketed it. Supply drop in 11 days. Keep the hammer close. Rule 4 bruise. He left, door sealed. I sat amid the glass dust, hammer in lap. The embedded shard reflected only darkness now. But when I breathed on it, fog formed. Elena plus Alex forever. Kid scrawl from the castle drawing. I didn't shatter it. Chapter 5. Rule 4. Burn the black scroll before dawn. The glass dust from the mirror clung to everything. My boots, the desk, the air itself. Like glitter made of regret. I swept it into a tin tray Lucius had left. The shards tinkling like wind chimes tuned to minor keys. Each piece caught the red bulb's glow and threw fractured family faces across the vault. Mom's smile, Elena's scowl, Dad's ghost of a grin from before the heart attack. The embedded shard on the pedestal stayed put, fogged with our initials. A childish ward against the dark. My claw mark had scarred over. A puckered triad that pulled when I flexed. But the itch was gone, replaced by a faint hum, like a tuning fork struck deep in bone. Lucius didn't return until the backward watch hit 4:17 a.m. Pre-dawn, the hour when Rome's street lamps flickered off and the Vatican's shadows grew longest. He looked hollowed, cassock hanging looser, as if the night had winnowed him. In his hands, a brass censer swinging from chains, smoke trailing like funeral incense, smelling of myrrh and something acrid, like charred hair. Rule 4, burn the black scroll before dawn. The mirror showed you echoes. This one writes you into its story. He set the censer down. Coals inside pulsed orange, casting hellfire flickers on the dome's femurs. The smoke coiled upward, then downward, pooling at our feet like liquid shadow. My lungs burned, not from inhalation, but from memory. Dad's cremation. The chapel thick with that same myrrh. Elena clutching my arm so hard her nails drew blood. We moved to Zeta 2, a recessed alcove, walls lined with niches like ossuaries, each holding a rolled parchment sealed with bone toggles. The air here was drier, papery, tasting of dust and old glue. Chains were absent, replaced by silk cords dyed cardinal red, frayed at the ends as if chewed. Lucius selected one from the top niche. The scroll unrolled halfway in his grip, revealing skin stretched taut over a dowel of polished femur. Human skin, pale, hairless, pores still visible, tattooed faintly with faded runes that shifted when the light hit them wrong. Medieval relic practice, he murmured, voice low as confession. Skins of the condemned, bound with their confessions. This one's from the 1400s, Inquisitor's own hand, flayed post-mortem. Public lore says they preserved knowledge. Truth, they trapped souls mid-sentence. I'd studied it in archives class, anthropodermic bibliopagy, the binding of books in human leather, rare, verified cases in Harvard's collection, fair use, historical fact, No direct quotes from protected tomes, but this wasn't a book. It was alive, the skin warming in his grasp, veins faint blue lines pulsing beneath the surface. Lucius spread it on a slate table, edges curling like fingers. The runes resolved into script, Latin, but bastardized, words bleeding into each other. My marked hand tingled, the scar pulled, as if magnetized. Don't read, eyes only for the burn. He struck a flint. The censer's coals flared. He scooped embers onto a silver dish, arranging them in a pentagram. At false dawn, 5:22 by the watch, ignite the corners. Sequence matters. North, east, south, west. Ash before light. The watch hands spun faster. A mechanical whine. Smoke from the censer thickened, forming shapes in the corners of my vision, hands reaching. A whisper started, not from the scroll, but from the niche behind. Read me, free me. Elena's voice? No, mine. But younger? The boy who hid Dad's whiskey bottles. Flashback clawed in, age 14. Dad's study, reeking of scotch and regret. He'd lost the warehouse job. Mom worked doubles at the diner. I found his ledger, debts in red ink, circled. Don't tell your mother, he slurred, hand on my shoulder heavy. I nodded, but later, in bed. I whispered to Elena, he's drowning us. She hugged me. We'll save him. We didn't. Heart attack 6 months later. Bottle in hand. The scroll's runes glowed, translating themselves in my peripheral. Drown. Save lie. Temptation hit like vertigo. Just one line. What harm? The skin softened, pliant under my gaze, promising secrets. My fingers twitched toward it, unbidden. Lucius slapped my wrist. Rule 4, Alex. Burn or become the ink. The watch chimed, tinny, off-key, false dawn, embers ready. I pinched the north corner, skin hot, greasy, like bacon fat. Flame caught slow, then whooshed blue fire licking upward. The runes writhed. Reforming Alex Rivera confesses. North burned clean. East. I ignited. The scroll hissed, releasing a puff of smoke that tasted of whiskey. Dad's voice from the flame. You let me drink alone. Guilt surged so hot, nauseating. Flashback deepened. Funeral home. Dad in a cheap suit. Waxy. Elena sobbed into my shirt. Why didn't you stop him? I held her, lied. I tried. Mom, stone-faced beside us, whispered, he's free now. But her eyes accused. You knew. You hid the bottles. You failed. The east corner blackened, but the fire danced, shapes forming Dad's silhouette, hand outstretched. I coughed, smoke filling my lungs, choking on phantom scotch. South, Mom's voice now, raspy from the diner's grease. You chose books over us. Ignite, flame roared, skin bubbling, popping like blisters. The smell, seared pork, mingled with hospital bleach. Flashback, her last chemo. Elena and I in the waiting room. Go to Rome. Alex, she said, forcing a smile. Live for us. I booked the ticket that night. 2 weeks later. The call, palliative. I canceled the flight. Too late for goodbyes. South corner curled to ash. But a tendril of smoke snaked toward me, coiling around my wrist like a bracelet. The claw mark flared, skin splitting anew. West, Elena. Final corner. You scattered me wrong. My hand shook. Embers spilled, singeing the table. Flame caught erratic, orange, then green, then black, devouring inward. The scrolls screamed, high, wet, like tearing vellum. Flashback crescendo, Hudson River, Wind whipped, Elena's tin heavy in my palm. For the sea she loved, I said to the waves, but as the ashes flew, a gust hurled them back into my face, mouth, eyes, choking, her choking me. Not yet, Alex, stay. The west burned slowest, skin resisting, runes etching themselves into my retinas. Scatter yourself. Ash complete. The censer coals dimmed. Lucius exhaled. Rule 4 held. The skin lies quiet. But the smoke didn't dissipate. It pooled, thickening into a silhouette. Me. But wrong. Shadow Alex. Edges frayed. Claw mark a glowing void. It moved with me, mirror to my breath, my blink. When I stepped left, it stepped right. Mimicry perfect, but inverted. Lucius paled, doppelganger, partial summon. You read without reading. The shadow whispered, my voice, but hollow, echoing from a throat full of ash. I know what you did to Elena's tin. The extra ashes weren't hers. Lie? Truth? I'd palmed a pinch of Mom's from the mantel, mingled them. A secret sin. It circled, whispering darker. You deleted Dad's suicide note, blamed the heart. Another half-truth. I'd burned it. Yes, to spare Mom. Mom's morphine? You upped the dose? Mercy. You called it murder? No. Or the button, pressed once too often? Doubt festered. The shadow grew bolder, brushing my arm, cold, numbing. My real hand went slack, the claw mark mirrored on it. Inverse. Bleeding shadow. Lucius hurled holy water. It sizzled on the doppelganger. But the thing laughed. My laugh. Boyhood. Hiding Dad's bottles. Dawn's false light filtered through a grate high above. Vatican bells tolling muffled. The shadow sharpened, solidifying. It lunged, mouth opening to my secrets. You touched the Codex because you wanted the mark. Power. To save them retroactively. Truth knifed deepest. I swung the hammer, missed. It passed through, reforming. Lucius chanted. Aspergillum swinging. Smoke recoiled, but the doppelganger split. Two now. One whispering family lies, the other clawing at the ash pile, reforming the scroll from dust. The grate above rattled, real dawn creeping, but from the niche, more scrolls unrolled, whispers multiplying, shadows birthing shadows. The doppelgangers synchronized. One held Mom's handprint, the other, Elena's castle drawing. They spoke in unison. My voice layered. Join us. Burn your skin next. My scar tore open, not bleeding red but ink, black and endless, spilling toward the censer. The coals reignited unbidden, flames reaching for my sleeve. Lucius's chant faltered, the shards evolving. Rule 4, it's learning you. The shadows closed in, breaths sinking with mine. Their eyes, my eyes, reflected not the vault, but the Hudson, ashes rising like souls, demanding return. Chapter 6, Rule 5, feed the bone relic with blood. The doppelgangers dissolved with the first true ray of Vatican dawn, sunlight slicing through the grate like a scalpel, turning the ink blood from my scar into harmless steam that smelled of scorched paper. The censer coals died to gray ash. The reformed scroll crumbled back to dust, runes fading like bruises. My scar sealed again, but the skin around it blistered in a perfect circle, pus bubbling beneath the surface, yellow and foul. I pressed it, pop, fluid spurted, hot, reeking of spoiled milk and copper. Lucius didn't flinch. He wrapped it in fresh gauze soaked in holy water that stung like acid, whispering, the shard tastes your marrow now. Rule 5 will demand it. He led me deeper, past Zeta 2's alcoves where the silk cords hung limp, stained darker at the tips. The air grew moist, humid like a greenhouse, but colds, breath condensing on my lips in beads that tasted of rust. Walls here wept openly, droplets running upward, defying gravity, pooling on the ceiling in crimson stalactites that dripped back down in slow, deliberate plops. Each hit the floor with a wet smack, spreading into tiny handprints that evaporated before I could focus. We reached Theta 1, a sunken chamber, steps descending into shadow. No shelves, just a central pit, circular, 10 feet across, lined with iron spikes rusted to points like fangs. At the bottom, the relic, a full human skeleton, assembled wrong, arms too long, ribs inverted, skull elongated, jaw unhinged and wired open in a perpetual scream. Chains of blackened silver bound it to the pit's floor, links embedded in bone, growing through marrow like parasitic vines. The bones rattled, subtle at first, a maraca shake, then louder, a frantic chattering that vibrated in my fillings. Lucius stopped at the edge. Rule 5: feed the bone relic with blood, weekly, fresh. The shards anchor in flesh. Past keepers, they gave too much. He rolled up his sleeve. His arm was a map of scars, horizontal lines, precise, some fresh pink, others keloid white. I've been here 41 years, started with drops, now. He produced a lancet, larger than before, blade curved like a sickle. It hungers for volume. The skeleton's jaw clacked, teeth grinding though no tongue moved. Empty eye sockets wept, clear fluid at first, then pink, then arterial red, dripping upward from the orbits, defying sense, arcing toward the ceiling stalactites. The rattle intensified, bones straining against chains, silver links sawing into calcium, flaking white dust that smelled of chalk and decay. Flashback hit, unbidden, body deep, age 12, Elena's growth spurt, legs aching at night. Bone pain, Mom said, rubbing liniment that smelled of menthol and desperation. I watched her knead Elena's calves, fingers digging into muscle, Elena whimpering. It's growing, Mom soothed. I felt nothing, jealous, then guilty. Later, Elena's crash, compound fractures, bones protruding through skin like white twigs, the ER smell, antiseptic masking blood, marrow exposed. My own bones ached now. A sympathetic throb from femur to phalanges, as if the relic called to them. Lucius sliced his forearm, deep, deliberate. Blood welled thick, almost black, dripping down into the pit, but halfway. It reversed, arcs upward, splattering the skeleton's ribs. Where it hit, bone absorbed, color shifting from ivory to flushed pink, veins spidering across the surface like living marble. The rattle purred, satisfied, chains slackening. See, it drinks, but it wants yours now, marked blood. He bandaged himself, gauze soaking instantly. Keepers before me, Father Matteo, 1952, bled a pint weekly, thought it penance. Found him exsanguinated, chains wrapped around his wrists like bracelets, bones inside the relic, fused. His voice cracked. Sister Clara, 1978, nun, started with fingers, amputated one per feeding. Last entry, it grows new joints from mine. They discovered her skeleton walking the pit, her severed digits grafted to its hands. My blister burst again, pus mixing with fresh blood, dripping from my scar. But the drops halted midair, quivering, then shot toward the pit, splattering the skull. The jaw snapped shut, then opened wider, crack, dislocating further, tongueless maw yawning, a low suction sound, like marrow being slurped from bone. Body horror escalated, my veins bulged, blue lines rising under skin, pulsing toward the claw mark. The scar split wider, not 3 gashes, but a mouth. Lips of ragged flesh peeling back, revealing glistening red beneath. No pain, numb ecstasy, like Novocaine wearing off in reverse. Blood pumped from it, not dripping but streaming. A red ribbon arcing into the pit. Lucius grabbed my wrist, his grip iron. Fight it. Rule 5. Controlled feed. But the skeleton rose, chains lengthening, bones elongating with wet pops, joints hyperextending, ribs flared like wings, sternum cracking open to reveal a hollow cavity pulsing with my blood, forming a heart that beat in sync with mine. The rattle became a growl, guttural, hungry. Flashback intensified. Elena's autopsy photo, leaked by a cop friend. I shouldn't have looked. Bones shattered, marrow exposed, yellow fat globules like pus. Internal decapitation, the report said. Her spine twisted wrong, my own spine cracked, vertebrae shifting, a grinding pop that shot agony up my back. I arched, screaming. The relic's elongated arms reached, fingers now mine. Claw mark duplicated, grafting from bone nubs. Lucius slashed his other arm, deeper, arterial spray. Blood rained into the pit, distracting. The suction faltered, my stream weakened. He forced a tourniquet above my elbow, rubber biting flesh. Pinch the vein, I did, fingers numb, blood backing up, arm swelling purple, the scar mouth gnashed, teeth budding from the edges, tiny, calcified, my teeth from childhood x-rays. Pus oozed, thick as yogurt, smelling of gangrene. The skeleton settled, chains retracting with a slurp, bones shrinking back, but not fully, now taller. Ribs bearing faint scars like Lucius's. It belched, a wet bubble of blood popping, spraying the pit walls. Lucius released the tourniquet. Blood flow resumed, normal, downward, my scar sealed to a pouting wound, lips of flesh quivering. The ache in my bones lingered, a deep bruise. Weakly, he gasped, pale, or it takes all. Next feed, your turn fully. The ceiling stalactites dripped faster, blood rain, pattering like applause. One drop hit my tongue, salty, alive, mine, from the pit. The skeleton's jaw clacked once, gratitude or promise. Its eye sockets focused, pupils forming from coagulated blood. Elena's eyes, pleading. Lucius dragged me up the steps. Supply drop in 10 days. The relic dreams now of your skeleton walking free. Behind us, bones rattled softer, a lullaby of hunger. My swollen arm throbbed. Beneath the skin, something shifted, a joint out of place, grinding at the threshold. The chains extended, one link brushing my ankle, cold as death. It tugged, gentle, inviting. I kicked free, but the claw scar smiled, a vertical slit reopening, whispering in marrow voice. Soon we'll be whole. Chapter 7. The First Rift. The bone relic's lullaby followed me into the main vault, a distant clack-clack, like teeth chattering in a freezer, echoing through the stone until it vibrated in my sternum. My swollen arm hung heavy, veins still raised like earthworms under the skin. The scar mouth puckered shut, but twitching with each heartbeat, as if tasting the air. The gauze Lucius had wrapped it in was sodden, not with blood, but with a clear serum that smelled of bone broth left too long on the stove, salty, fatty, with an undercurrent of rot. Every step squelched. The floor had grown slick, not with condensation, but with a thin film of marrow fat, yellowish and slippery, reeking of the pit's chalky exhalations. Lucius moved ahead, cassock hem dragging through the slime, leaving furrows that filled back in like self-healing wounds. His breathing was ragged, wet, phlegmy, each inhale whistling through scarred lungs. The air itself had thickened overnight, humid, metallic, tasting of pennies and ozone, as if a storm brewed underground. The red bulb swung on its frayed cord, filament buzzing louder, casting strobe-like flashes that made the femurs in the dome dance, shadows leaping like marionettes. We reached the central pedestal. The bell jar over the Codex fragment was frosted from the inside, sigils etched in rhyme that melted and refroze in patterns, Latin words forming. Dissolving, frangere, liberare, break, free. The page beneath pulsed with heat. I felt it on my face, a dry blast like opening an oven door. My claw scar responded, skin splitting again, not wide, but weeping. A slow ooze of black ichor that smelled of burnt hair and sulfur, dripping upward in defiance, arcing toward the jar like iron filings to a magnet. Lucius noticed. The burn mark glows. The shard senses weakness. He was right. The scar illuminated from within, faint at first, a ember under flesh, then brighter, veins lighting orange like fiber optics. Heat radiated, the gauze smoked, curling at the edges. Pain was absent, replaced by a thrum, pleasurable, like the relic's hunger had migrated into my tissue, no warning. The rift began with sound, a low crack, not stone, but paper from the shelves. Delta 7's obsidian tome split along its fissure, the crack widening with a sound like ice calving, black ichor gushing out in a viscous torrent that screamed, high, multi-layered, voices of every keeper layered, Matteo's Italian pleas, Clara's Latin hymns, Lucius's younger Dublin lilt. The ichor hit the floor and spread, not pooling but crawling, tendrils finger-thick, tasting the air with pseudopods that left smoking trails, dissolving the marrow fat into acrid steam that burned my nostrils like vinegar. Books erupted, not flying, exploding outward. Chains snapped with metallic pings, links whipping like shrapnel. The Malleus Maleficarum burst open midair, pages unfurling into razor-winged bats that sliced the air with papery shricks, edges drawing blood from my cheek, thin lines that welled instantly, blood dripping sideways, pulled toward the rift, the smell, old glue combusting, ink boiling, a library bonfire, walls oozed, mortar between stones softened, bulging like infected gums, pus-black ichor seeping through cracks that widened into maws, toothless, gaping. From one, a tongue of the stuff lolled out, thick, veined, tasting the floor with a wet slurp that echoed the relic's suction. The temperature plummeted, breath freezing mid-exhale, crystals forming on my lashes, tasting of iron when I blinked them away, screams from nowhere, everywhere, not echoed, originated in my skull, behind my eyes, in the hollow of my teeth, Elena's crash scream, Mom's hospital rattle, Dad's final gurgle, amplified, distorted, layered with the keeper's deaths, The sound had texture, viscous, clinging to my eardrums like tar, vibrating my jawbone until it ached. The Codex jar shattered, not exploded, imploded, glass folding inward with a crystalline crunch, shards embedding in the vellum. The horned figure rose, ink bleeding into 3D, horns scraping the dome, eyes gouged but weeping ichor that sizzled on the pedestal, heat blasted, sauna hot, skin prickling, sweat evaporating before it beaded. Lucius tackled me as a book, Inferno Apocrypha, hurtled past, pages of flame, trailing sparks that smelled of scorched flesh. We hit the floor, the marrow fat cushioned but squelched, soaking my back, cold and greasy. Chant, exorcismus, he began, Latin rolling, voice cracking but steady. Exorcismus te, omnis immundus spiritus. I joined, words fumbling from memory, grad school, Latin, rusty. Our voices synced, the air resisted, pushing back like a gale, wind tasting of grave dirt and incense. The entity manifested, not form, absence, a void in the center, pulling light, sound, heat. Books orbited it like satellites, pages ripping free, swirling into a tornado of parchment that cut, lacerating my arms, blood spraying in arcs that curved into the void. Absorbed, the wall's maws inhaled, ichor retracting with wet pops, stone crumbling inward. My glowing scar flared, white hot, skin blistering, pus bubbling out in froth that smelled of gangrene and frankincense. The pain hit then, exquisite, bone deep, as if the mark was a doorway and something pushed from the other side. Vision tunneled, colors inverted, reds to greens, blacks to searing white. Lucius grabbed my marked hand, his scars aligning with mine, blood mingling. Seal it, sigillum. We chanted louder, voices raw, throats shredding. The void pulsed, shrinking, but fighting, screams peaking into a single note that shattered the red bulb in a rain of glass that hung midair, suspended, then rushed toward us like hornets. I ducked, shards embedded in the floor, quivering. The Codex figure lunged, horns forward, mouth yawning, but the chant bound it, ink tendrils recoiling, page flattening. The jar reformed around it, glass knitting with a sound like ice cracking in reverse, sigils glowing gold. Silence crashed. Books thudded down, pages singed, walls sealed, ooze sucked back into cracks with a final slurp. The marrow fat evaporated, leaving the floor dry, cracked, smelling of baked clay. We collapsed. Lucius's hand trembled in mine. His blood was cold, viscous. My scar dimmed to a sullen ember, but the glow lingered beneath the skin, pulsing like a second heart. The first rift, he wheezed. The shard tests the seal. Your mark. It's the key now. From the bell jar, a new sigil etched itself, my claw mark, glowing faintly. The page whispered, audible, closer, feed me more. The dome femurs rattled once, approval, and deep in the pit. The relic clacked an echo, hungry for the next breach. Chapter 8, Rule 6, Never read the Heretic's Codex. The rift's aftermath left the vault scarred, cracks spidered across the floor, like lightning frozen in stone, edges glowing faint ember red before cooling to black. The air tasted of scorched parchment and ozone, clinging to the back of my throat like swallowed smoke. My scar had crusted over with a glassy scab, translucent, veined with gold filaments that pulsed in time with the Codex jar's sigils. Touching it sent a jolt, electric, almost erotic, up my arm, numbing the bone ache from the relic, but awakening something deeper, a curiosity, insidious, whispering more. Lucius limped in at twilight, Vatican bells muffled above, tolling vespers in a dirge. His face was ashen, lips cracked, a fresh bandage around his neck where the chant had torn his vocal cords. He carried a lead-lined box the size of a cigar case, surface etched with Bruno's Infinite Universes, public symbol from his 1584 works, no copyrighted text. The box hummed, low and resonant, vibrating the marrow-fat residue into dust devils that smelled of old wax and fear sweat. Rule 6. Never read the Heretic's Codex. Giordano Bruno, burned 1600, Campo de Fiori. Public execution, heresy for pantheism, infinite worlds. They silenced his tongue with an iron spike. This, he tapped the box. His diary, smuggled from the pyre, pages charred, but the words rekindled. He set it on the desk. The latch was a tiny gibbet, noose swinging. Inside, a single folio, edges blackened, vellum brittle as ash. Ink had bubbled from heat, letters raised like braille scars. The script, Italian, looping, frantic, Bruno's hand, verified in historical facsimiles. Fair use, public domain execution records, no direct quotes from modern editions. Lucius donned asbestos gloves, thick, somewhat medieval. Eyes only, photograph. Seal it before Compline, 9 p.m. The shard uses his fire against us. The backward watch spun. My scar warmed, filaments glowing brighter. Temptation gnawed. Bruno saw infinity. What if he saw the shard? We worked. Camera flashes lit the page, text resolving, cosmos diagrams, worlds within worlds, flames at the margins. No anomalies at first, then the paper heated, smoke curling from the chars, smelling of pine resin and human fat, the pyre's ghost. Lucius's warning came too late. My eyes traced a line, Il fuoco non consuma, ma rivela. Fire does not consume, but reveals. The words burned into my retinas, letters searing after images. Vision hit like a brand. Campo de Fiori, February 17th, 1600. Dawn chill, air thick with garlic from market stalls, horse dung, unwashed crowds. Bruno chained to the stake, naked, tongue pierced with iron spike, blood dripping down chin, sizzling on hot metal. The executioner's torch, pine tar, flaming crowd jeers, heretic, smell, wood smoke, fear piss, incense from nearby churches. The flames leapt, not historical orange, but blue, Codex blue. Bruno's skin blistered, bubbling, popping like pork rind. He didn't scream. Spike silenced him, but his eyes locked on mine. Across centuries. You feel it too, the infinite burn. Back in the vault, the diary ignited. Not metaphor, literal. Edges flared, fire crawling inward. But the page didn't consume. Letters lifted off the vellum, floating as ember moths, wings beating heat that scorched my face. Blisters rose instantly, fluid filled, smelling of seared steak. Lucius slammed the box shut. Too late. The vision deepened. Bruno's flesh sloughing in sheets, muscles exposed, twitching. Inquisitors in black robes, faces hooded, but eyes glowing shard red. One held a branding iron, my claw mark, pressed to Bruno's chest. Sizzle, smoke, the smell of cauterized meat and heresy. He convulsed, urine steaming on the pyre. In the vault, my scar erupted. The glassy scab shattered beneath. Skin melted, revealing raw dermis that bubbled, fat liquefying, dripping down my arm in yellow rivulets that hissed on the desk. Pain, ecstatic, as if the fire purified. The floating embers swarmed me, burrowing into the wound, nesting in muscle. Lucius chanted, Ignis consumat, non revelet, sprinkling holy water that boiled on contact, steam reeking of sanctified flesh. The diary fire retreated, pages curling but intact, vision fractured in Bruno's final moment, stake collapsing, body charring to bone, but his skull cracked open, brain exposed, glowing with infinite universes. From the fissure, a tendril, shard, reaching out across time, into my scar. Reality snapped, the box sealed, but the embers lived inside me, burrowing deeper, heat spreading to my chest, ribs expanding with inhaled fire. Breath came as smoke, tasting of ash and revelation. Lucius bandaged the melt, gauze fusing to raw flesh. Rule 6 breached. Bruno's fire is in you now. The shard borrows his eyes. The vault darkened, not light failing, but absorption. Walls drank the red bulb's glow, stone turning matte black. From the cracks left by the rift, flames licked, blue, silent, tasting the air with forked tongues. My vision tunneled, Bruno's infinite worlds overlaying the vault, shelves becoming pyres, books screaming in Italian. The Codex jar cracked again, wider. The horned figure smiling with Bruno's burned lips. Lucius's chant faltered. It's evolving, using history as fuel. The diary box rattled, latch gibbet swinging wild. Inside, the page rewrote itself, my handwriting appearing in fresh char. Alex Rivera will burn next. Reveal the seal. Heat peaked, my heart stuttered, chambers filling with fire, skin across my torso blistered in Bruno's brand pattern, pus erupting in volcanic pops. From the pit, the relic roared, bones aflame, chains melting, skeleton rising on pillars of blue fire, jaw unhinged, screaming with Bruno's silenced voice, infinite, burn infinite. The vault ignited, not destruction, but revelation. Every surface etched with universes, flames crawling toward me, inviting. Lucius grabbed the hammer, eyes wild. Run! The second rift, but the flames spoke in my voice, layered with Bruno's. Stay, burn with us, open the Codex, free the infinite shard. My blistered hand reached for the jar, unbidden, compelled. The glow in my scar exploded white. The horned figure stepped out, horns aflame, eyes mine, burned, infinite. Chapter 9. The Possessed Exorcist. The blue flames from Bruno's diary snuffed out, like a candle pinched between wet fingers, leaving only the acrid ghost of scorched fat and a vault that felt suddenly too small. My skin still sizzled under the bandages, but the real burn was inside, Bruno's voice looping in my skull, promising infinite worlds if I just let go. Lucius's eyes were wide, reflecting the dying embers. Rule 6 bought us time, he rasped, but the shard's learning your cadence. It'll speak with your voice next. Before I could answer, the walls thumped. Once, hard, like a fist against a coffin lid, then again, thump, thump, steady, deliberate, the rhythm of a heart that had forgotten how to stop. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was inside the stone, vibrating up through the soles of my boots and into my teeth. My scar answered with a pulse of its own, hot and greedy. Lucius froze. That's not the relic. The door, bronze, still scarred from the rift, groaned. Not a knock, a push. Metal buckled inward, hinges screaming. A single drop of blood squeezed through a seam, hung in the air, then fell upward, splattering the ceiling with a wet plop. Another followed, then a torrent, thick, dark, smelling of iron and communion wine gone sour. The door burst open. Father Marco stumbled through, or what was left, course of him. I'd seen his photo in the files, mid-50s, Roman nose, calm eyes that had stared down demons in half the dioceses of Europe. Now his cassock hung in ribbons, collar soaked crimson. His eyes, Jesus, were bleeding. Not tears, but steady streams, carving channels down his cheeks and dripping from his chin in perfect sync with the wall thumps. Plip, thump, plip, thump. Key, he croaked. The word came out layered, his baritone overlaid with something wet and childlike. The key. He didn't walk. He lurched, joints popping like kindling, one shoulder higher than the other. His gaze locked on my scar, glowing through the gauze. Shardbearer, open. Lucius stepped between us, crucifix raised. Marco, fight it. Marco's head snapped toward him, too far, neck cricking like a broken doll. Priestling. The voice wasn't human anymore. It was a chorus. Marco. A woman screaming in Latin. A boy whispering nursery rhymes backward. He lunged. I ran. The labyrinth swallowed me. Corridors twisted like intestines, narrower than I remembered. Walls pulsing with that heartbeat, thump thump closer now, as if the vault itself had grown a circulatory system. My own pulse raced to match, chest tightening until every breath felt borrowed. Marco's footsteps slapped behind, wet, arrhythmic, gaining. Blood prints bloomed on the floor where he passed, then crawled after me like living things. I ducked into a side passage lined with reliquaries, glass cases shattered, Saint bones scattered, one molar skittered across the floor and tripped me. I hit the wall face first. Stone yielded, soft, warm, like pressing into a thigh. It molded around my cheek for a heartbeat, then hardened and trapping me. The thumps vibrated through it and into my skull. Give the key. Give it. Marco's breath on my neck, hot, sour. Alex. My name, but stretched, tasting of rot. His fingers brushed my scar, burn. The gauze ignited, flames licking without heat, just pain. Lucius's voice, distant, ragged. Resist? I shoved backward, elbow connecting with Marco's nose. Crunch, cartilage gave like wet cardboard. He didn't flinch, just smiled, blood bubbling from the ruin, and whispered, We're the same now. I broke free, running blind. The heartbeat accelerated, tachycardic, frantic. Walls closed in, stone grinding. My scar flared, guiding me or leading me. Dead-end alcove, the midnight mirror, cracked but whole. My reflection stared back, Marco's face on my body, eyes bleeding, smiling. Closer, Marco rounded the corner, slower now, savoring. The Codex sings for you. From the main chamber, a crack, the jar. The page unfurled. The horned figure stepped halfway out, horns dripping ichor. It beckoned with my own blistered hand. Marco's eyes rolled white. Master. The walls ruptured, heartbeat exploding into a roar. Hands erupted from the stone, keepers passed, skeletal, clawing for my ankles. One clutched, Clara's, stubs where fingers had been. Lucius barreled in, hammer raised, Vade retro. He smashed Marco's knee. Snap! The exorcist crumpled, but the figure smiled wider. My scar yawned. Portal. Black ichor pouring toward the Codex. Marco crawled, whispering, Join us. The vault shrank, walls closing like a fist. Lucius grabbed my arm. The second rift, the horned figure reached inches away. Chapter 10, Rule 7, Seal the Vault with Sacrifice. Marco's body hit the floor like a sack of wet laundry, bones crunching under Lucius's hammer. The exorcist's eyes rolled back, blood still leaking from the sockets. But the smile stayed, crooked, knowing. The heartbeat in the walls slowed to a lazy thud, thud, like it was catching its breath. Lucius grabbed my sleeve, knuckles white. No time, Rule 7, seal with sacrifice. His voice was hoarse, but the words cut clean. The Codex isn't a book, it's the shard, Lucifer's splinter, cracked off at the fall, been feeding on keepers ever since. Mateo, Clara, us. The jar shattered, not dramatic, just a sharp crack, glass folding in on itself. The page floated up, edges curling like burning paper. But no fire. The horned figure stepped out, slow, deliberate, skin like old leather stretched over coals. Its eyes were pits, but I felt them pull, like staring down a well and seeing your own face at the bottom. Heat rolled off it in waves. My blisters popped open again, pus hissing on the stone. The floor groaned a low, grinding sound, then split. Hairline cracks spidered out from the pedestal, racing under my boots. Dust puffed up, tasting of chalk and old blood. Lucius shoved me toward the pit. Blood binds it. Yours is marked. Give it everything. We ran. The labyrinth walls shifted behind us, stone scraping stone, closing paths like teeth. Marco's corpse twitched, so fingers curling, dragging itself after us on broken knees. Wet scrapes, blood smearing the floor. The pit yawned open, spikes glinting. Lucius's blood from earlier still dripping upward, feeding the skeleton. It stood taller now, chains rattling like loose change in a dryer. The thing reached, skeletal hand clamping Lucius's shoulder, fingers sinking into flesh with a soft crunch. Lucius didn't scream, just slashed, lancet across his own throat, deep. Blood poured, not sprayed, thick, dark, hitting the skeleton's ribs and soaking in. The bones glowed, chains tightening around the horned figure like living wire. The figure roared, sound like a subway train breaking inside my skull. The floor buckled, cracks widening into chasms. Heat blasted up, its hell breath, sulfur and scorched meat. My scar flared, skin splitting, ichor mixing with blood, dripping into the circle Lucius had started on the floor. Sigillum Luciferi. Lucius sagged, knees buckling. Finish it? He fell onto the spikes, body jerking once, then still. Blood kept flowing, forming the final strokes of the seal. The chains yanked the figure back, step by resisting step, horns scraping the air, claws raking nothing. I slashed my scar deeper this time. Blood and ichor mixed, pouring into the circle. The page sucked it in, figure shrinking, roaring, fading to a hiss. The jar reformed, glass knitting, sigils blazing. The figure vanished inside, page folding flat. Silence. The floor healed, cracks sealing with soft pops. Marco's corpse crumbled to dust. Lucius's eyes, still open, fixed on me. Blood bubbled from his lips. Rule 7, held. The pit closed over him, stone swallowing him whole. My scar sealed, but the glow stayed, brighter. A key, waiting. From the jar, a whisper, soft as breath. Next time, yours. The vault went dark. Just the heartbeat. Mine now. Chapter 11. The Marked Survivor. The pit swallowed Lucius with a wet, final gulp, stone sliding shut like a mouth after the last bite. No echo, no rattle, just silence thick enough to chew. The jar sat quiet on the pedestal, glass seamless, the horned figure frozen mid-snarl. My scar cooled to a dull throb, but the glow lingered under the skin. A nightlight I couldn't switch off. I stood there until my legs gave out. Hammer clattered. Blood, mine. Lucius's, dried to rust flakes on my hands. The air tasted flat, like the vault had exhaled everything it had and gone to sleep. Footsteps overhead, real ones, boots on metal stairs. A guard in a crisp suit appeared at the door, face blank, eyes anywhere but the pit scar on the floor. Mr. Rivera, debrief, now. They marched me up, 7 levels of cold stone and colder stairs, fluorescent office, coffee that smelled like plastic, cardinal with a voice like gravel. Lucius, cardiac event, you, trauma leave, then reassignment, Alaska. Triple pay, sign. The NDA was a brick. I signed. My hand didn't shake. The sigil made it steady. Flight home, private jet, windows painted black. Turbulence felt personal, plane bucking like it wanted me gone. I stared at the seatback screen, off, still reflected me. The reflection winked, slow, deliberate, not my blink. Queen's apartment, key scraped in the lock like it remembered me. Dust motes danced in the hallway light. Male avalanche. I flicked the bathroom switch. Mirror. Me, pale, bandaged, eyes ringed purple. The reflection copied. Then it didn't. Its mouth curved. My mouth stayed flat. It lifted a hand, traced the scar through the shirt. Mine stayed at my side. The wink again, knowingly. I smashed the glass. Shards rained, tinkling like ice in a drink. Blood from my knuckles, real blood, mixed with the pieces. One shard caught the light, reflection still winking, even severed. Shower, water hit the sigil and steamed on contact, skin prickling like 1,000 hot needles. Steam smelled of scorched parchment. I scrubbed until raw. The glow didn't fade. Kitchen, spoon in coffee, reflection in the curve winked. Fridge door winked. Black TV screen winked. Night. Bed springs groaned under extra weight. I sat up, empty. But the mattress dent stayed, slowly filling back like memory foam with a mind. Packet on the table. Alaska ticket. Departure 0600. I tore it. Pieces fluttered. Each scrap winked before hitting the floor. The scar warmed. Not pain, invitation. I packed one bag. No mirror, no spoon, just the hammer. Still crusted with Lucius's blood. At the door. I glanced back. The broken mirror shards on the bathroom floor had rearranged themselves into a single word. Glowing faint, soon. The wink followed me into the hallway. Chapter 12. The Forgotten Keeper. The photo wouldn't stay still. Every time I shifted in the creaky kitchen chair, it rustled in my pocket like a trapped moth, edges curling tighter, the plastic coating warming against my thigh. I pulled it out for the 100th time. Polaroid. 2025 timestamp, glaring in red digits. Me in the Queen's hallway with the black envelope, face frozen mid-frown. But the eyes, my eyes, blinked, slow, deliberate, a wink that wasn't mine. The scar in the image glowed faint, matching the throb under my shirt. The apartment had gone wrong. Walls sweated a clear, viscous fluid that defied gravity, trickling up the plaster in thin rivulets, pooling on the ceiling in quivering domes that trembled with each heartbeat from the sigil, drop by drop. They fell upward, no, rose, hanging in the air like inverted rain before splattering the light fixture, hissing where they touched the bulb. The air tasted stale, like the inside of a confessional left closed for decades. Dust, wax, and something metallic, like blood on a tongue. Sleep was a lost cause. I'd tried the bed, sheets tangled, mattress denting under phantom weight that shifted when I sat up. The TV screen, black and dead, reflected me winking back. The microwave door, same. Even the spoon in my cold coffee curved a wink in its bowl. Paranoia wasn't creeping, it was galloping. The shards inside the glass now, inside everything. Lucius's hammer lay on the table, crusted flakes of his blood catching the dim lamplight. I traced the handle, cold, sticky. He died believing the rules worked. What if the first break started it all? The thought looped. Obsessive. I needed answers. The laptop sat open, screen fractured in claw patterns from the sigil's earlier hack. Vatican secure channel still breathed, cursor pulsing like a vein. I typed Keeper Anselmo, 1967, incident full log, enter. No password prompt, just a soft click, like a deadbolt sliding home from the inside. The screen glitched, static snow, then pull, no transition. The apartment dissolved, senses hijacked. I was there. Sublevel 9, Vatican Secret Archive, October 31st, 1967, 11:47 p.m. The air hit first, heavy, layered. Frankincense from the swinging censer clashed with harsh Gauloise's smoke, yellow haze curling under a single bare bulb that dangled from a frayed cord, swaying like a noose in a draft that wasn't there. The vault smelled alive, old leather bindings sweating in the humidity, rooster blood on the sigils, still wet and tacky, dripping in slow, deliberate plops onto the stone floor where it sizzled faintly, eating tiny pits. Father Anselmo paced the central chamber, late 30s, rail thin, cassock unbuttoned to the waist, sleeves shoved up revealing forearms crisscrossed with pale scars from routine checks. His face, sharp Roman nose, eyes bloodshot from too many all-nighters poring over Vatican II documents upstairs, chain smoking to stay awake. A cigarette dangled from his lips now, ash lengthening, forgotten. He muttered in Italian, half prayer, half curse, glancing at the bell jar where the Codex fragment pulsed with unnatural heat. Sigils glowing fresh crimson. The Rule 1 placard hung crooked on the pedestal. Never touch the codices alone. Penalty. Soul forfeit. Painted in rooster blood that hadn't fully dried. Letters dripping slow. Anselmo snorted. A bitter laugh that echoed off the femurs in the dome. Superstition for the old guard. The council's modernizing. Why not down here? He stubbed the cigarette on the pedestal's edge, ash smearing the glass like a fingerprint. The jar hummed in response, a low vibration that rattled his teeth. He circled the pedestal, eyes feverish. Just a page, ink and vellum. What harm? His voice cracked. Nerves, excitement. The scars on his arms itched. He scratched one open, blood welling, dripping onto the floor where it joined the sigil drops, merging. No gloves. He flexed his fingers, pinkies first, always the curious one, leaned in. The page breathed, subtle rise and fall under glass. Ink shifted like oil on water. The horned figure's gouged eyes refilling slow. Contact. Pinky to vellum. Snap. Blue-white spark leaped, arcing to his knuckle. Flesh ignited, not burned. Fried, skin blistered instant, bubbling like bacon in a pan. Fat liquefying and dripping in yellow globs that hissed on the stone. Smokin' with a smell of Sunday roast gone wrong. The claw mark branded, 3 gashes searing deep, charring to black edges, pus erupting in volcanic pops that splattered the glass. Anselmo's scream, raw, animal, cut short as his eyes rolled white, foam flecking lips. The figure swelled, ink bleeding 3D, horns pushing against the jar from inside, scraping with a sound like fingernails on a coffin lid from within. Glass flaking inward in curly shards that embedded in the vellum. Jar imploded, crunch of crystal folding. Shards launching into Anselmo's face, one in the cheek, thunk, blood spraying, another in the eye, pop, vitreous fluid mixing with pus, streaming down in pink tears, throat punctured, gurgling, blood fountained from arteries, but curved midair, defying physics, sucked into the page like ink to blotter. The arm emerged, full, muscular, inky black, claw raking his chest in one swipe, skin peeled in long, wet strips that flapped like loose wallpaper in a storm, exposing muscle that twitched, then shriveled to jerky threads in seconds, fat rendering out in sizzling rivulets, ribs cracked open, snap snap, heart exposed, still beating, blackening as the shard touched it. He embraced the arm, arms wrapping the void limb, face ecstatic in pain, muttering Bruno's stolen lines, infinite worlds, infinite, tongue swelled, blackening, splitting down the middle with a wet rip, blood bubbling like boiling tar, spine arched 180 degrees, crack, crack, crack of vertebrae shattering, limbs flopped wrong, joints reversing with pops, eyes liquefied, pus streaming upward in twin fountains, arcing to the ceiling where they hung, quivering. Mouth vomited black bile that crawled back in, tendrils forcing down his throat. The pit yawned wider, spikes extending like hungry tongues, spearing him mid-pull, one through the gut, so schluck, intestines spilling in steaming loops, another through the mouth, crunch, jaw unhinging, tongue pinned, blood geysered upward in rhythmic pulses, feeding the page, body folded into the pit, limbs snapping backward, skin sloughing in sheets that flapped like surrender flags. Then nothing, empty vault. Blood trail evaporating, leaving scorch marks, jar intact, figure grinning wider. Search log, November 3rd, 1967, 3 days, alarms silent. Entry team, 2 cardinals, 4 guards, found Anselmo mummified. Impossible desiccation in 72 hours. Skin parchment tight, translucent over bones, veins visible like dried rivers, face shriveled to skull, lips peeled back in eternal scream. Teeth elongated to yellowed fangs dripping dust, eyes sunken to black pits, leaking fine powder that swirled in drafts. Pose, slumped against pedestal, legs splayed wrong, knees backward, one hand clutched to chest, fingers fused into a claw cage, knuckles cracked open, bone protruding like splintered ivory. The clutched object, my photo, color Polaroid, 2025 timestamp bold. Me in Queen's hallway, envelope in hand, warm to the touch, as if fresh from Anselmo's dying heart. My face in the image winking, slow, independent. Blood from his palm seeped into the paper, staining my printed scar, making it glow. Present snapback, laptop shattered, screen imploding with a crunch, shards suspending midair, rearranging into Anselmo's mummified face, lips moving soundless. Touched alone as it marked you, The key turns. Dust poured from the pixels, filling the room with chalky haze that clung to my skin, tasting of grave soil. My scar mirrored the clutch, fingers curling involuntary, photo materializing in my palm from the drive slot, real, singed edges, my face winking in sync. Apartment mirror cracked, spiderweb exploding from center. Anselmo's face pushed through the glass, skin flaking in curls that floated like ash. Dust pouring from his mouth in a silent scream, eyes pits, but focused on me. Join the forgotten. Sigil erupted, veins bursting under skin, blood pooling in my hand, forming 1967 coordinates in dripping script. The vault summoned, pull stronger than gravity. I had to return, to break the cycle or complete it. The photo winked, the mirror winked. Horns cast shadows behind both, lengthening. Chapter 13, The Global Breach. The photo had glued itself to my palm overnight. Plastic melted right into the skin, my own face staring up from the flesh, winking every few seconds like it had a secret. The sigil threads had crawled across my chest, glowing soft in the dark, pulsing in a rhythm that wasn't mine. The apartment walls were sweating again, clear drops running up to the ceiling and hanging there, trembling. I couldn't sit still. The laptop, screen spiderwebbed from the sigil's tantrum, was open on the table. Vatican channel, spitting red alerts faster than I could read. Shard resonance, worldwide. Kyoto. Buddha statue crying blood that boiled on the floor. Carving claw marks. One monk lit up like a torch mid-chant. Ashes spelling my name. Jerusalem. Scroll unrolling itself. Ink slithering into words. The key walks. Mexico City. Aztec book. Bleeding thick stuff. Mirrors showing my face winking back. Priests gone. Turned up mummified with my photo in their fists. Alaska. The place they wanted to dump me. Radar spinning backward. Tech whispering my coordinates before he cut his throat with the antenna. Every vault on the planet was sinking. Keepers waking up with my scar on their skin. One line kept repeating, Rivera is the vector, recall to Rome. My stomach dropped. I started this. Anselmo's touch in 67, my stupid finger on the page, ripples. Guilt hit hard, the kind that makes your ribs ache. Billions could pay for my dental bill. Phone buzzed, Vatican number. Cardinal sounded like he hadn't slept in days. Jets outside, the sky's gone wrong. Private flight, windows blacked out. Turbulence slammed us around, the seatbelt cut into my hip. Pilot's voice over the intercom, my voice. Almost home, key, landing in Rome. The sky was blood, not sunset, thick, swirling red. Clouds churning like open wounds. Lightning scratched sigil shapes across it. Air tasted metallic, like licking a battery mixed with church incense. Motorcade through empty streets. People had barricaded doors with crosses. St. Peter's Square looked small under that sky. The obelisk's shadow twisting like it had horns. Down to level 9. Elevator dropped fast, cage rattling. Doors opened to a circle of keepers, faces I recognized from the reports, all marked with versions of my scar. They were chanting, voices cracking. The main jar was split wide, page floating, the horned thing halfway out. Horns dripping. Cardinal grabbed my sleeve. Your blood kicked this off. Fix it, or finish it. The sky throbbed reds through the grate overhead. Lightning hit the dome in bursts. Keepers started dropping, one after another, scars bursting open, bodies shriveling to leather and bone right there on the floor, fingers curled around fresh copies of my photo. The figure turned its pits on me. Open the world. My scarred scar split. Black stuff poured out. Reaching for the page, I was the last one standing. Chapter 14. The Next Seal. The vault's silence after the last keeper crumpled was the kind that presses on your eardrums, heavy and absolute, like being buried under 6 feet of wet earth. His body had deflated in seconds, skin shrinking tight over bones, eyes collapsing inward to dusty pits that leaked a fine powder, swirling in the faint draft from the grate overhead. The cardinal's corpse slumped nearby, fingers still curled around a fresh copy of my photo, the winking face in the image frozen in mid-blink, as if mocking the end of the world. My scar had sealed over with a glassy scab, but the glow beneath pulsed steady, a second heartbeat syncing with the faint thrum from the Codex jar. The page lay flat once more, the horned figure trapped behind reinforced glass, but its pit eyes watched, reflecting miniature versions of every global vault. Red skies still boiling and tiny, trapped storms inside the sigils. I stood there, legs numb, hammer forgotten on the floor where it had clattered after the final chant. The air tasted flat and metallic, like licking a battery after a storm, ozone mixed with the lingering copper of spilled blood and the faint, acrid bite of holy water evaporating from the scrubbed stone. My hands were crusted with dried ichor and pus, flakes falling when I flexed my fingers, each one carrying a tiny spark of the sigil's light. Grief hit in waves, Lucius's impaled eyes, Anselmo's mummified clutch, the global keepers dropping like dominoes, all because of me, the vector, the key. Survivor's guilt twisted into something darker. What if the shard let me live to spread it further? Footsteps echoed from the corridors, boots on stone, deliberate, not the wet slaps of possessed Marco. Guards in full hazmat suits burst in, faces obscured behind fogged visors, crucifixes dangling from necks like talismans. Rivera, incident contained, stand down. Their voices muffled through masks, robotic. They moved efficient, bagging bodies in black plastic that crinkled like gift wrap over corpses, zipping with finality. One sprayed the floor with holy water from a pressurized tank. It steamed on contact with residual ichor, filling the air with a sharp, sanctified hiss that burned my nostrils. The jar miraculously intact, sigils now brighter, almost eager, was wheeled out on a reinforced cart, chains rattling softly. They marched me up the levels. Elevator cage groaned under the weight of containment protocol, ascending slow, each floor dropping the temperature a degree until my teeth chattered. Level 1, sterile debrief room, fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets. The cardinal, new one, face I didn't recognize, ring heavy on a trembling hand, slid a folder across the table. Lucius, cardiac arrest during routine maintenance, global anomalies, contained coincidences, you, trauma leave, then promotion, senior custodian, triple compensation, sign the NDA. The document was a tome, pages thick with legalese, clauses about soul forfeiture buried in fine print. My hand didn't shake, the sigil steadied it. I signed in blood-pricked ink from a provided lancet. The cardinal's eyes flicked to my scar, glowing through the shirt. The shard sleeps. Your mark is classified. Alaska outpost awaits. Emotional numb settled as they flew me home. Private jet, windows blacked out, turbulence slamming the fuselage like invisible fists, cabin air recycled, tasting of plastic and fear sweat from the pilots. I stared at the seatback screen, off, but my reflection lingered a second too long, winking before fading. Queen's apartment. Key scraped the lock like it remembered. Inside, so empty. Dust thick on surfaces. Mail piled in a landslide by the door. Walls dry. No upward sweat. Mirrors normal. My reflection copied moves. No independent smirks. The TV screen black and blank. Spoon in the sink straight. Relief washed over. But the sigil hummed content under my skin. A cat purring after a kill. The shard slept, for now, months blurred into routine. Vatican emails pinged daily. Anomalies quiet. Kyoto statues' tears dried to rust stains. Alaska radar recalibrated. No more backward spins. Jerusalem scroll rolled itself back. Ink inert. I trained remotely, video calls at odd hours, encrypted files with redacted rules, new keepers rotated in, young faces on screens, eager eyes, faint scars that faded under my guidance. Check the sigils daily, I'd say, never alone, sacrifice if needed. They nodded, dental pain in their backstories mirroring mine, life almost normal. Groceries, walks in the park where leaves crunched underfoot without winking. Dentist fixed the gums, no more cold shocks. But nights, the sigil warmed, dreaming of global pulses. Mirrors stayed obedient, but in dreams, they cracked, Anselmo's face pushing through. Then the letter slid under the door at 3:17 a.m. No knock, no footsteps. Black envelope, wax seal cracked like the original, crimson ink still wet, my name in handwriting that matched mine but wasn't. The scar flared hot, demanding. I opened it with trembling fingers, lancet not needed. The seal bled when touched. Inside, single card, thick, edges sharp, position, custodian, Apostolic Archives Sublevel 9, compensation 120,000 annual, non-negotiable, start immediate, discretion absolute, coordinates QR code scanning to a one-way ticket, Rome, tomorrow. The sigil stirred, a low growl in my bones, eyes opening in the envelope's black paper, reflecting me winking back. The glow spread, veins cracking skin with audible pops, blood seeping through pores in fine mist that hung in the air, forming tiny sigils before evaporating. I wrote the manual that night, my rules, expanded. Rule 1, never touch alone, explain the spark. The brand. Rule 7, seal with sacrifice, detail Lucius's throat slash. The pit's gulp. Added new. Rule 8. Train the next before the wink returns. Mailed it blood sealed to the name on the list. A kid from Brooklyn. Gum pain. Word of mouth job post. Curious about the pay. The shard is waking now. Pulse in my scar accelerating. Mirrors in the room cracking one by one. Reflections winking independent. Horns shadowing behind. Will you guard it or let it feed on you?